we've got some. Wanted this opportunity to be able to talk to you kind of one-on-one about some of the things that are going on that we're seeing a lot of, 200 complaints a week, so we see a lot. Want to warn you about some of those things and want you to warn us about what you see going on. So, you have anything going on?
We have a lot going on. We have rental issues going on, a lot of landlord-tenant issues, a lot of car issues, a lot of scam issues.
Not as we practice it, I know. I just wanted to throw her under the bus a little bit here. Hey, we got a lot going on. I want to talk about this thing. I wish I could bring a camera here closer, and you're not going to be able to see it from here. We're going to talk about interest rates of 160% to buy a car. 160%. We're going to talk about the lack of a law in the state about interest rates, about the cars you get in these situations. Student loans.
We're also going to talk about, student loans. There was just a multi-million-dollar crackdown from the FTC. So some consumers who fell victim to repayment fraud and scams are actually going to see their money back, but those scams are definitely on the rise with some deadlines coming up.
And we're going to talk about evictions. They are as high as they have ever been in the state, probably higher. And we have facts that back that up with what's going on in the Maricopa County Justice Courts. And we're going to have a judge with us, hopefully. Not here yet, but the presiding judge in the Maricopa County Justice Courts should be here talking about her experiences and what she sees in the courtroom. And I think a lot of the problems are that, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but a lot of the people aren't bringing attorneys with them. And yet the other side has an attorney. So a lot of these people are losing their battle.
Uneven fight.
A little uneven. All right, let's start it though back to the annual percentage rate. I mean, when I saw this woman I was writing, I said, you have to give me your contract so we can make sure this. And I thought there's no way it's going to say 169%. There's got to be some weird formula that it would equal that amount or something. Yeah, but it actually says 169%. So there's a contract here, buying a car at a buy here, pay here place, right? The car is $2,499, right? That's the amount financed. Now, but how are you going to need a car for that amount? I don't know, but $2,499. But you're paying $6,000 in interest. So you'll be paying $8,804. Guys, this is, I mean, I don't know if you're in a situation like that, or if you've dealt with this, or you have a friend or somebody or a family member who's dealt with it. But man, that is tough. I know that these places serve a niche. There are certain people who, all of us need cars. I mean, we need to be able to get to work. We need to be able to get the kids to school, get to the grocery store, right? But so these are the places. If you don't have a great credit score, if you don't have cash laying around, if you can't get a loan, some of these places are places you can go and drive off the lot that day, right? You take out this loan. But man, if there's any other way you can get away with it, because we're seeing other problems with the cars that you're getting in these situations. I mean, we're working on a couple now where, 3 or 4 complaints against the same company here in Phoenix, where they're just driving away with pieces of crap, And so you think, okay, I'm getting it for $2,400, but I'm going to put $1,000 into it in about 100 miles because the transmission is going to go bad, or more than that, or head gasket issues, or even brakes would be like $400 to $500. So I mean, you really need to think about some of these places, the amounts of the loan, paying $6,000 in interest to buy a $2,000 car.
Well, one of the things we talked about when it comes to the interest rates was there's no law cap necessarily.
Yeah.
With it being 10% as the cap if it's not written.
Yeah.
But if the contract doesn't have an interest rate, it can be, like you said, 160+%.
Yeah, we didn't even get to that part of it. I mean, there's the law says basically, yeah, if there's nothing written in the contract, anything written in the contract, as long as it's transparent, is good to go here in Arizona. So if they have 2,000% interest, I don't know. Would that be good? I mean, if you agreed to it and you signed the contract, that's transparency. I get it. And you know what you're doing by signing that 2,000% interest. But, it just seems like sometimes people need to be protected from themselves. And I think there needs to be some kind of cap on that. But there's not right now. There's not a cap on that. But it's 10% if it's not written in the contract. So if you have no interest rate written in the contract, then, we're not ready yet. But if you have 10% written in the contract, or don't have anything written, then 10% would be the amount. Are we on air with the judge right now?
Yeah, I
didn't know you were going to put her on air yet. We weren't ready, but that's okay. We love having the judge here. First of all, appreciate it, Your Honor, for being here with us. This is Judge Anna Huberman, and I've read up a little bit on you, Your Honor, and about the presiding judge here in Maricopa County Justice Courts, and that you are just seeing all kinds of things when it comes to evictions. That I don't know how many of these have you counted? How many eviction cases that you've looked at in a month?
So, well, we do keep statistics on how many cases all
Yeah.
of the courts.
You personally?
Well, we did redistrict a little at the beginning of the year. I was getting an average of 500 cases a month. I think I've probably gone down to like 400 now.
Okay, I can barely hear you. I don't know if that's an issue with our end or whatever, but so about that's a lot. That was a lot of cases, and I know that we were reading Scott Davis, who's the wonderful Scott Davis. You know, I know that he has a title, but he's basically the head guru of communications there at the Maricopa County Justice Department.
I know one of the things that really stuck out to me that Scott sent over was that it said about less than 3% of tenants that show up for an evictions case have representation, whereas landlords have it's like 95, 94%. It's just such a big difference on the scale there.
I don't want to have to correct you, but it's actually 1/3 of 1%.
Oh,
not
well, it's worse than I thought.
Wow. Okay.
Less than 1%.
What problems does that create for? Is there an imbalance there? Because I would guess in most cases the landlord has or the company has an attorney there.
Correct. There's an imbalance for many reasons. You know, there's an imbalance because financially they're not in the same situation. There is an imbalance because I'm trying to see if I can fix my audio, but I don't know.
That's okay. I think we're hearing you enough.
Okay.
No problem.
You know, the imbalance isn't just the representation of the attorneys. There's a financial imbalance. There is because evictions are so fast and everything gets resolved so quickly, all of this creates an imbalance for the tenants, which makes it very difficult for them to be able to resolve their cases, to have the knowledge and to have the tools that they need to be able to resolve their cases in the timeframes that we give them.
I know that in small claims court that, you know, basically when you go in, you're basically the judges, I think there's some lenience for people who just represent themselves in small claims court, where they go in and so the judge can, you know, talk to them a little bit through the cases and all. Is that the same thing you would have to do, or do you do in evictions where you or should, when they don't have representation? I mean, there's that imbalance there. Do you have to kind of walk them through that? Should you have to do that?
Well, I think that the idea is that we want there to be justice. We don't want there just to have to base things on technicalities. So we do want the litigants to be aware of what they need to do, and if they're doing something wrong, how they can fix it. So we do that in all types of cases. But that doesn't mean that we ignore the law. The law requires us to do certain things. And even though we can see that the tenant didn't understand or that the tenant is unprepared, that is not necessarily a basis for us to consider the non-payment of rent or whatever it is as a defense.
What do you see kind of
All right, we'll try to get you back, Your Honor, in a little bit here. I know you probably, can you hear us now?
I can, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. Sorry about that.
Is there, I was just saying, with people representing themselves and tenants, is there a common misstep that you see people making that maybe with your knowledge they could kind of help avoid?
You know, I get this question a lot, and I don't know what it is that they can avoid. I think one of the one of the biggest misconceptions is that the tenant believes that because they reach out to their landlord and they tell them, I'm going to be late this month on rent, or, I lost my job, I just need a couple more weeks, that the landlord was going to understand that and wait for them. And landlords don't always do that and don't always wait, and they bring them to court. And so they become very disillusioned when that happens, because they feel that they did what they had to do on their part, which was to let them know that they were going to be late, that they were having financial difficulties, and that the landlord didn't care. But I will say, on the other hand, that we do hear that a lot of landlords do work with their tenants after they have come to court. So once
Okay.
they have a judgment, the landlords are willing to make agreements with them. So I think that what's important is that the tenants not give up, that if they think that they are able to stay in the property and they think that they'll be able to make their payments, that they should always try to make those agreements with the landlord when possible.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that. Oh boy, whatever that was. I saw that. Yeah, no, it's okay. I saw that that most of the people, so you were talking about, don't represent themselves in court, but that people are now coming to court at least, but that before they weren't even showing up. So in those cases, I would think that there would be maybe a default judgment that would be given, and they wouldn't even get that. But now they're coming there. And what more could you tell them about preparing for trial? Is there a percentage of cases, or do you see most people not prepared, not really know what they should be saying? How should they be acting versus how they're kind of forced to do that if they don't have all the documents that they need? What are you seeing?
So one of the reasons that, or I would say the basic reason why we are getting more appearances in court is because we do allow them to appear virtually now. And we actually encourage virtual appearance, so they can attend their hearings either by phone or by video. And that has allowed them not to have to miss a whole day of work just to show up in court. We try in my court, and we encourage the judges to try to set their calendars in increments, so the person's not waiting for several hours for their case to be heard, but we try to set them in 1 hour increments, so at the most they only need an hour to be in court. So I would say, though, that sometimes having folks on the phone where they're not able to see somebody in person doesn't help to their preparation. They have a hard time getting us the documents that we need to have for those hearings because they're on the phone. So those are the kind of things that I would suggest that everybody have whatever documents they want the judge or the attorneys to see, and to email them to the parties ahead of time, so everyone has access to the documentation that they're talking about. And it's very hard, attorneys go to law school for a lot of years to learn how to put on trials. And we're telling these self-represented litigants, your turn now, ask the questions. And so it's, all I can suggest is that they try to find out what the best way to present their case is. But obviously, they can't do a crash course in conducting trials.
Well, that's great information. And if you're just joining us, it's Joe Ducey and KJ, producer with Let Joe Know, ABC15, and we're with Judge Anna Huberman, who is a presiding judge in the Maricopa County Justice Courts and deals with a lot of eviction cases. So we're talking about what you do if you are facing eviction, maybe how do you best prepare yourself versus you representing yourself versus an attorney that might come in, because the other side's probably going to have an attorney. I guess, so if you have any questions, please ask now. We could try to bring them to Judge Huberman, and maybe she can, in the limited time we have, answer a couple of those things. I guess, are there some things that you would suggest to people? You talked a little bit about working out a payment, plan. Maybe that was after, about trying to work that out. But are there some things that if people are behind in their rent or thinking they're going to be behind in their rent, are there things they should be doing now to avoid so you don't see them?
Well, obviously, I think that, having contact with the landlord as early as possible, may be helpful. There are landlords that will do payment plans or partial payment plans. I think, having good communication is definitely the way to go. The waiting until the last minute to try to resolve things doesn't help. Um, I also see it, and what I'm going to say, I know is going to be very difficult, but people need to read their documents. There's a lot of information that we give. It's maybe too much information because there's just a lot to read. But the information is in there. We are telling them, what they need to do to avoid having a judgment against them, or, many times they're like, I didn't see that, I didn't know that. We do give you that information, which is not helpful sometimes because tenants get, packets of information when they get cited to court, and it's probably overwhelming. They're already traumatized because of the situation that they're in. And I know that we're dumping all these documents on them, but I think that we give them that information because we're hopeful that will help them.
Judge Huberman, I have a question for you. It's something that we kind of see a lot, people who are going through the eviction process. One thing they're, like you said, it can be traumatizing. They're worried about keeping a roof over their head. But one thing they're also worried about is, the future after going through the eviction process with finding a new place to live. So how does maybe if they do go through an eviction, how does that kind of impact their background check and their ability to find housing kind of moving forward?
At this point, it's very detrimental. The housing market is very tight, and landlords, there's definitely more demand for units than there are offers of units, and landlords can be very picky about who they rent to. And my understanding is that anyone that has an eviction on their record is getting turned away from being able to rent. So the consequences are very detrimental, and obviously the point is to try to avoid everything possible to get that judgment. I will say that one of the things that folks don't necessarily know, and I find that a lot of the apartment complexes give them incorrect information, is that up until the time that the judgment is signed, they can pay off everything they owe.
Yes,
The landlord has
I've heard
the
that.
option to reinstate the lease.
Okay.
And so we get a lot of people that come to court and say, I'm working on it, I think I'll have the money tomorrow. And it's like, if you have it today, I will not sign that judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And that will make a big difference because you won't have a judgment against you. You won't have to be begging to your landlord to vacate the judgment so it doesn't harm you in the future. If you can, I know it's not easy because obviously that's why they're here in the first place, because they didn't have the money to pay it. But
yeah, I think we have a few minutes left here. I just want to get to, because we have a question here from Rachel. I'm not sure if it's something that you can answer necessarily, but you might be able to see it there. My apartment complex made me leave my apartment in December very abruptly so they could fix my bedroom that had flooded. I had to sleep in my car with my 6-year-old daughter for a few days. They get an Airbnb and stay in at a coworker's garage all while paying full rent. It broke me financially. Basically, I think she said she didn't get a call. I never even received a call from the corporate office. I called them daily. So it seems like a lack of communication. I don't know all the details here other than what we're seeing. But is there anything you'd advise in that case? That's already happened. That's not an eviction, but she was out of her place for a period of time and trying to get maybe some of that back. And what should have happened in that case? Any advice?
So, well,
yeah.
Don't ask the
I
judge.
put you on the spot on that one.
I can give you information, not advice.
Yeah. Okay.
But I will say that and again, you talked about the imbalance of power, and this is one of the issues where the tenant does have remedies in the Landlord-tenant Act to resolve these types of issues, things that break, and what they can expect, and what the remedies are. but sometimes they're not in a financial situation to be able to take advantage of that. But I will say that everyone should definitely look into what the law says about what the remedies are when there's things that need to be fixed or not fixed. They can always sue their landlord in a different, in a civil case to try to get any amounts that they believe that they were damaged. So that's always possible. Um, I think the hardest thing is, to know what your rights are and
Yeah.
to know, should they have been allowed to make you leave without compensation, or should you be able to request that they pay for your alternate housing? Uh, like I said, it's very hard for tenants, you know, and because how quickly these things work out. But that's definitely information that it's good to have. And I would suggest that everyone have that ahead of time, that when you
Yeah.
sign a lease, you
That's a key.
know what
Yeah.
what you're signing and what you're in for.
Yeah. Your Honor, you've been great. I really appreciate it. Judge Anna Huberman, thank you for your thoughts here. I think you've helped a lot of people. And thanks for dealing with some of the bugs on what's bugging you. We're still working those things out. Thanks to everybody else who's been listening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with a little bit more. And of course, on every day on ABC15, ABC15.com. All right. See you next time.
Thank you.